So Mikkel, when Jana was little, she's my wife, she and her family would be driving along and her parents would tell her, shh, be really quiet and you might see a deer. It didn't take Jana that long to figure out that when you are riding along in the car, wildlife cannot tell whether you are being quiet as a child or whether you're being loud.
It
and
cannot.
Maybe her parents just wanted her to be quiet
Yeah.
for a little while. But you can imagine if Jana hadn't figured that out, how funny it would be as an adult
Right.
if you're driving along and you think, I want to see wildlife, I better be quiet inside my car.
Yeah.
Have you ever had anything like that where like from a child you believe something that maybe wasn't totally true?
Yes, I have. It took me a little bit to think of a good story for this, but when I was a kid, I had 2 older sisters. I also have a younger brother, and my 2 older sisters managed to convince me that I was adopted.
Oh. Okay.
Because my other siblings have photo albums from when they were born, but I was born by C-section, so there's no photo album. And so they used that to convince me that I must have come from someplace else, like I was adopted. And this is particularly laughable when you consider like how much we looked alike. This is me over here on the side. Yeah.
Yes.
And
looking just like 2 of your siblings.
Exactly like 2 of my siblings. And but logic, when you're that age, doesn't account for much. And thankfully I figured it out eventually, but my sisters still like to laugh at me about that.
It's so easy to stretch the truth, right?
Yeah.
Because, legitimately there weren't pictures of your birth.
Right.
Legitimately, often if you want to see wildlife, it's helpful to be still and quiet. Yep. But then as a kid, you can very easily take those things and turn them into mistruths.
Yeah. And we've been wrestling with that question of truth and mistruth during this series. We're in a series called Lies My Preacher Told Me. It's based on a book by the same name from Brent Strawn. And a truth for all of us that we've come to realize is that the Bible is a big and complex book.
It is really big and complex, and it's so easy for us to make mistakes when it comes to the large and complicated subject of the Bible. Now, the reason that's important is mistruths and our mistakes about the Bible, they matter.
Yeah.
Maybe we're not talking in this series about full-on lying with an intent to deceive, but the truth matters. And at Sycamore Creek Church, we really want to be a community that seeks and cares about truth. And we care about that because we live out what we believe.
Yeah.
And we don't want to live out mistruths. So, Mikkel, you're not adopted. That's a mistruth. And deer can't tell if you're quiet or not when you're driving in your car.
Yeah, so, maybe a more accurate title, but less catchy title for this series is that we're really talking about mistruths that my preacher or my parents or my Sunday school teacher told me. And these mistruths are the result of being ill-informed or just maybe not fully informed.
And that happens, in lots of different areas of life. It's not always lying per se, but we feel compelled to speak about all sorts of things that we don't know the whole truth about. And parents do it, teachers do it, preachers, Sunday school teachers, our siblings like to do that and pull our leg a bit. We all do this at times.
Yeah, and as we've acknowledged throughout this series, one of the largest and most difficult parts of the Bible is the Old Testament. So each week in the series, we've looked at a different mistruth that most of us believe, and sometimes we'd rather not admit that we believe it, about the Old Testament. And then we've reoriented ourselves toward the truth.
Yes.
And the truth of the Old Testament, it can be pretty tricky.
It's really tricky
to grab onto. It takes a lot of time and study. And so let's take a moment just to reflect on where we're all at in this journey of understanding the Old Testament. So we're going to take a minute to chat about this. On a scale of 1, which is never read it, to 10, which is expert, where are you with engaging the Old Testament? And why did you give yourself that rating?